Welcome to Planet Raconteur, where we who tell stories rule this world. I am your host, Yuck Nasty, and I will be your guide into our world that's filled with sights and sounds, both wonderful and frightening. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but ask yourself this: what if when you get there, St. Peter says no? Hey, stop me if you heard this one, by Patrick Johansson.
This is by Patrick Johansson. Stop me if you've heard this one. So this guy dies, see, and winds up at the pearly gates. St. Peter looks up from his Times crossword, gives him a quick once-over and says, "Sorry, not taking anymore." Returns to his crossword. Guy says, "Whoa, what do you mean you're not taking anymore?" St. Peter doesn't even look up. "You heard me," he said. "The big man told me no more humans. Seems he had a little look-see recently, and you guys have really ratcheted your planet up badly. So he's not interested in seeing any more of you in heaven. Took some convincing on the part of Jesus, though, to get him to keep the current crop. Man, was he ticked. I have never seen him turn purple before, and I don't really care to again, tell you the truth." Guy says, "What, so that's it? A lifetime of devotion to God and to God's law, and I'm told no thanks, fuck off, that's just the way it goes?" "Hey, I never said off," says St. Peter, actually pronouncing, "yeah." You dig? Since he's an angel and all. Well, he's a saint, but I think you're getting the drift, right? So he sighs, looks up again from his puzzle, sets aside his unbelievably beautiful pen, and says, "Look, there's been a big-time major paradigm shift up here lately. Something that I've heard referred to as a Vinian-style singularity. So about 2, maybe 3 years ago, these weirdly shaped cloud things start showing up here at the door of heaven. Reminded me of some of the old Star Trek series, you know, all those aliens that were just glowing clouds and such. Turns out they're artificial intelligences. Now, I had no idea what to do with them. What do I do with them? Turn them away, let them in, hand them off to Krishna? What? So I call up the big man on the big phone. Now, at this point, he points over at the big phone. It's kind of a conch shell-shaped affair with a pearlescent sheen and a one large button marked infinity. Big man says, "Come on up. We'll have a conference on the mount." So I head on over to the meeting. The conference, me, God, Jesus, Moses, and a couple of others you might or might not have ever heard of, we decide to let the AIs in on a trial basis. You see, they're not baptized Christians, you know, but the ones we're getting here are the work of baptized Christians. And there's some kind of a loophole that one of the lawyers found. Now, whoa! Guy says, "Wait a minute. There are lawyers in heaven?" "Son, that's a whole different joke," says St. Peter. "Just stick to the thread, okay? Anyways, there's a loophole in the law. Something about derivative works and child equivalence and perfect innocence owing to the lack of original sin in the AIs and so forth. So we let all these AIs in just for and giggles. Big man decides to have a look at Earth to see what's up with his creation and all. This creation is now creating, you see. So they're beginning to play God themselves. Now, this pronounced with a lowercase g, to distinguish it, of course, from the name of the most holy big man. St. Peter says, "And when Jesus finally manages to swim up the stream of curses issuing from his dad's lips, well, like I said, it took a lot of fast talking to keep him from throwing every soul out that had arrived since the Industrial Revolution. All I can say is this: it's a good thing for them that the lawyers hadn't made it back down the elevator yet." So the guy says, "You're casting me out. You're sending me to hell because we as a race have what? Befouled our nest?" "Well," says St. Peter, he's kind of looking a little uncomfortable here. Kind of like a kid caught in a lie. Not quite. Big man said he didn't want any of your kind in heaven anymore. and there's not a thing I can do against a decree from, the on high. But he didn't say that I had to send a lot of you to hell. So here's the deal. You're free to go wherever you want. Wander the universe. Listen, there's an H-E double hockey sticks lot of universe to see. Should take you the better part of eternity, and then you can always go back and do it again if you want to. He picked up his pen, started on his crossword again. Guy says, so that's it. There's no hope for the human race. Sorry, says St. Peter, but listen, before you go, there's one question, see, and it's been bugging me all week. I can't quite get it. Do you have any idea what the currency of Thailand is? Whoa, says the guy. You don't know? Omniscience and all that? 1, says St. Peter, that's God, not the saints. And 2, it would be cheating. So do you know the answer or not? Guy says, dinar maybe? No, says Peter. It's got to be 4 letters.
This year has been hell on all of us. With the pandemic, the civil unrest, people losing their jobs. What if it was unfortunately no longer hell for some of us? Here we go with Downsizing Pluto by Shane Halbach.
Downsizing Pluto by Shane Halbach. Hades sat in his office, high atop his dark tower. He put the finishing touches on his black-painted fingernails and held his hand up to the light to inspect his work. Perfect. The shade of black exactly matched his hair, his eyes, and his coordinating shirt and pants. Only his pale white skin contrasted the darkness of his appearance. He was just about to complete the look with some dark eyeshadow when he heard a knock. Hades looked up quickly. No one ever dared to disturb him in his tower.
Enter!
He commanded, and the door swung open. Occupying the entire doorway was a huge man, resplendent in a white tank top and extremely short red running shorts. Muscles bulged everywhere. He even had soft red wristbands and a matching sweatband around his head. Hades rolled his eyes.
Playing up the jock look a little much, aren't we, Zeus?
Asked Hades. He waved Zeus toward a chair.
Listen, come in. Can I get you something to drink? I don't get a lot of company around here.
Pluto?
What's with the formal name? You'd think 2 gods who go back as far as we do could use common names amongst ourselves.
Well, I think we better stick with the formality for now.
Very well, Jupiter. What can I do for you?
Well, it's just that, I'm just gonna come out with it. We're gonna have to let you go.
What?
Roared Pluto, and he came halfway out of his chair.
I am Hades, Lord of the underworld. I bring death and despair. Mothers frighten their children with me. Strong men refuse to speak my name, lest it draw my attention.
Used to, buddy. Used to. It's just that, people just aren't afraid of the underworld anymore. It just doesn't have a place these days. And it's been quite a while since people were afraid to speak your name, Pluto flopped back into his chair, deflated. Look, man, it's been hard on us all. The way things have been lately, not much worship to go around. Something had to give. You have to admit, you've always been a little out there. Pluto's head sank into his hands, his elbows resting on his desk.
You can't do this to me. I've been a god for over 2 millennia. I don't know how to do anything else.
Come on, man. It's not the end of the world. Just a little downsizing. There's plenty of time to start a new career, Like, hey, how about mining? You've always had a thing for precious metals, right? I mean, I bet with a resume like yours, you would make supervisor in no time. Pluto slumped down until his forehead was resting on his arms, burying his face.
Oh, what am I gonna do?
I don't know what to tell you, man. I suppose you could always try a petition, a little self-promotion, drum up some interest, get you back on the map, get your name out there.
Oh.
Very well, I'll leave you to it then, said Jupiter, standing to leave. Sudden inspiration struck and he added magnanimously, hey, why don't you go ahead and keep the tower for a while, just until you get back on your feet. Of course, we're gonna have to take the planet back, though. When Pluto didn't answer, Jupiter backed out of the room and closed the door quietly. With the door safely closed behind him, Jupiter let out a long breath. That had been hard. Pluto had been a god for a long time. He was almost like family. In fact, he was family. He was Jupiter's brother. Nasty business. Jupiter paused a moment longer and then began descending the long staircase. What he needed was some exercise. Something to clear the head. Maybe I'll go toss some lightning. Or maybe play some racquetball. Yeah. Jupiter exited the tower, closing the door behind him, and walked off into the night. The end.
Pleased to meet you. Hope you guess my name. I'm a man of wealth and taste, but the nature of my game is what puzzles you. We took you to heaven, we took you to hell. Now allow us to bring hell to you. Here is Misery Most Delicious by Arthur Allen Baxter.
Misery Most Delicious by Allen Baxter. For millennia, the misery of humans has sustained me, though I have never known such sumptuous feasts as these. Time and again, the human race surprises me with its pathological ability to bring wretchedness down upon itself. I walked the sands of Jericho as trumpets blared and voices roared and the walls fell. I feasted then while every man, woman, and child screamed as they were slaughtered, supping up that despair as an indolent king takes wine from a golden goblet. I strolled in the footsteps of the Israelites as they sacked Canaan, and their legacy engorged me. I fed at the first genocide as Carthage was destroyed, and I lounged in a tent with Alexander as he crushed the fatigued Persians, drinking in their laments as the Macedonians soaked the earth with their blood. I stalked this fetid earth from Crimea to England in the wake of the Black Death that reduced humanity's numbers and its will, celebrating that invisible, unstoppable, insatiable wave of bereavement. I laughed as the Inquisitors tortured and violated minds and bodies, terrifying humans away from evils the Church itself created. I thought then that humanity had reached its peak of imposed suffering, but I was wrong. Has ever humanity suffered so much as at the hands of religiously sanctioned atrocities? How many times have I taken sustenance from the anguish of families as blood washed the streets of Constantinople? I rode in the dark, stinking bellies of creaking ships as they sailed with the cargo of desolate souls from African coasts to the New World. But it was an old world to me, no different from those that had gone before it, and no less ripe with nourishment. Wherever spirit is crushed, wherever hope is torn away, wherever light is snuffed with anger, greed, and hatred, there walk I for the history of humanity. I have learnt, and never have I gone hungry. Never had I lacked provision. Always had I been spoiled for choice, and forever the numbers grow. A virus across this sweet green face of the land. People spread wherever there is space and pile upon one another whenever space runs out. They rot in desperation, propagating themselves and their ideals, and always with them goes the abhorrence that leads them to desecrate and debase each other. For power, for money, for gods, for the pure sake of it. As their numbers grow, so too does their misery. And their misery is the nectar I live for. Was there ever a creature more suited to this mortal realm and carnal decadence and carnage than I? So many human guises I have worn over the centuries. Walking through the killing fields, riding the plague winds, following the footsteps of suffering. Always have I hidden in plain view, disguised as one of them, feasting as I go. Yet always I had to seek out my sustenance, track down the pain of existence. It has never been as easy as this. Finally, it comes to me. And now my current role calls for my attention again. What slices of personal despair await my slavering taste tonight? Within this human guise, this suit and tie and glossy smile, I hunch with fervent anticipation. My mouth waters. I must be careful not to let my hunger show. Let it begin. Let the human misery wash over me. I clear my throat and speak through this modern medium of mass communication that brings the desolation directly to my tongue. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of A Current Today. On the program tonight, are you paying too much at the supermarket? Plus, a look into why nursing homes are possibly the worst place to send your aging relatives. But first, who would abuse and starve an 8-year-old child like this? Our exclusive report follows. Stay tuned. Delicious.
Well, there you go. Another trip to Planet Raconteur. On behalf of myself and our two fine raconteurs, Papa Dave and Bobby Anthem, we would like to thank you for listening once again. All of the stories presented on Planet Raconteur are used by permission or are in the public domain. Check out the show notes for details on the authors, their websites, and their other releases. And if you like what we are doing, please subscribe and follow us on all of our social media platforms. The links will be found in those same show notes. Much love. And thank you again for visiting the Planet Raconteur.